Hi everyone, Laurel here, Minnesota Zone 5A, according to the new USDA zone maps. We went up half a zone. Just doing a little New Year's garden tour. It's the end of December, New Year's weekend, and we still don't have any snow, and none really in the forecast. We might get a dusting to a half inch, maybe an inch maximum this evening and overnight, but it's been unseasonably warm like a lot of places in the country. Thankfully, we did get a bunch of precipitation over Christmas weekend. Most of Christmas Day it rained. Most of the weekend it kind of rained on and off. We actually got some little bit of puddling in the backyard, so we needed the moisture, so that's good, especially since we don't have snow. I was happy for that. We were puppy sitting for my friend's puppy for a week, so that wreaked a little havoc. It was a little bit of mayhem, but it was really fun too. She's a really, really sweet dog. But I was definitely reminded of how much work puppies are. It was a good reminder. So we got frost this morning though. Temperatures dipped. It's been in the 40s. It was even in the 50s over Christmas. But there's some frost here on these heucherella. Looks like a lot of the berries have either been eaten or just fallen off. No, I think they've been eaten off of this choke cherry bush. I'm sure the birds are foraging. We haven't had snow, so the hydrangeas still have their dried blooms up. Even this phlox, there's frost on it, but it has its new growth that's still green down there. And grass is all frosty. Looks pretty cool. Even these little bachelor buttons. This is what they do. They self-seed, and then they sprout these little plants, and those actually survive the winter. They are frosty now. I've taken in most of my yard ornaments, but I think I'm going to leave that one. It's like an iron piece. Got it at an antique fair a couple years ago. Frost here on the sedum. Seed heads looks pretty. Daylilies have been sprouting. They're a little bit confused about the season, but it's not going to hurt anything. And this still hasn't gone completely dormant. This I just planted. Clearance plant. Daisy May. Planted that late summer, early fall. Somewhere, well, maybe mid-fall. I don't even remember. I have spread out a whole bunch of these shredded leaves. That's what is in these big bags here. And I kind of raked. This is where I plant annuals like dahlias. I'm going to try amaranth, zinnias, cosmos next year. So I don't really need this chunky mulch. This chunky mulch is good for walking areas because it doesn't break down very fast and protects your feet from the mud of the soil below. But back here, this shredded leaf mulch makes a fantastic cover. It feeds the soil, protects the ground over winter, breaks down faster than a bark mulch. And especially in areas that when in the summertime it's full of plants and you can't really see the mulch anyway, I'd rather use free mulch. I don't care if it matches or it looks good. I'll put down free mulch instead of paying $5 a bag for the pine bark mulch. I do really like pine bark mulch because it doesn't break down as fast as shredded wood. So it lasts a few seasons and it has a nice brown color and it keeps its color for longer, I think. So that's what I have on all the pathways here. And we've got strawberries. I'm hoping next year I will replace this garden bed, and I'm hoping I can get a couple of round beds too and have one just with strawberries in it. But this area is going to evolve a lot for next year. I can see the voles and the rodents have made a cozy little home. There's a little hole in this. That's leaf mulch from last year that's been sitting here all summer. So it's really nutrient rich because it's been breaking down. So I'll use up that in the spring. But like this mulch, I have garlic planted in here. I'll leave this on top, but if it's in an empty bed, I just mix it in. You don't have to pull it up. As long as it's shredded, even a little bit, even if you go over it with the lawnmower. It is an awesome fertilizer. It's a good carbon source. So I just till it, mix it right in with my hands. I don't really till my beds, but I kind of mix up the soil a bit with my hands. Oh, somebody was digging in there. And I have leaf mulch on top of all my grow bags here. Next year I'm going to be planting a lot of things in the ground because it seems like I have good soil and it just requires a lot less watering that way. My soil holds on to a lot of moisture. Yeah, like this bed, I'll be digging that out in the spring to replace it with the new one. So I'll just dig the leaves right in with it. The frost looks really cool on the mulch. I don't know if you can really see that. It's like all the edges of the mulch have highlights right now. Same thing, the sage. Boy, that looks really cool. So pretty. Lots of interest in the winter garden, and you can actually still see the plants. Normally we would have some snow cover by now, but what little snow we got just melted quickly this year. They say it's a once in decades type of winter when it's this warm for this long. Got a hellebore back there. I'm just hoping, it's always bad when we get to our sub-zero temperatures and there's no snow cover to insulate the plants. That's when things die. All my plants are zone 4 because that's what we have been until, on paper at least, until this year when they changed the zone maps. So they can withstand to negative, oh, there's somebody's beeping. They can withstand to negative 30 degrees, but provided there is a little bit of insulation on the ground. So I did put some leaf mulch around in thin places too. Thin areas like over here, I put some leaf mulch over in this area. Viburnum. This is a North Pole Arborvitae. Strawberry daiquiri dogwood has really pretty red stems. Kind of strawberry colored, deeper red than some dogwoods get. And a reddish pink. These are 2 viburnum over here. I just picked up all my perennials that I'm overwintering in their plant cans too in the garage, so I'll go in the garage and show you that. And use the leaf mulch heavily here around this yew that I planted. Over in this area too. There's no point using bark mulch over here. It's not really an ornamental area per se. But I think the leaf mulch looks fine too. Still a natural color and uniform. Yeah, there's a lot more dieback on this lungwort than usual, I think just because usually it's insulated under the snow, so it stays more evergreen. This heuchera I planted really late, so I put a lot of leaves around that one. That hellebore looks pretty. Oh gosh, all these plants look so pretty with the frost. They've got frosted tips. Very late 90s, early 2000s of them. It's a Hakonakaloa grass. Lots of pretty texture and movement. Interest in the winter garden. These are all annuals here. That was a verbena, some ageratum, some other things. I just leave those. They're easier to pull out in the spring. This is a hardy mum. Perennials that are planted over here. The ajuga. Everybody's got frosted tips right now. I think that one is chocolate chip. Another annual verbena. And the allium seed heads. I just love the allium. I leave these up. I love the texture of those. And I can show you over in the porch how I overwinter things. Let's peek over here first. I don't think there's too much going on. Just the ground cover ajuga, the hostas are all dormant. A lot of stuff kind of just underground right now. 3 Bobo hydrangeas. I'm glad we got that rain. I was having to water these because I just transplanted them late in the fall. So without some kind of precipitation, they need to be watered. Not as much as in summer because it's cool out. Oh, I forgot about that little birdhouse. Kind of turned itself around. You can't see it in the summer because this honeysuckle has just taken over. These branches look really neat. In the wintertime, you can kind of see on the interior there the big branches that twist around that laundry pole. This, I think, is only 3 or 4 years old, too. This thing grows. It's a Kinsley's Ghost honeysuckle. It grows like crazy. This is the Garden Glow dogwood. Beautiful red stems. I did harvest some of those for an arrangement. And then the lamb's ear. Extra fuzzy with the frost on the leaves. Got a St. John's wort, little shrub back there. This will be its 3rd year in the ground, so I'm hoping maybe it will leap this year. As in, 1st year it sleeps, 2nd year it creeps, 3rd year it leaps. It's held on through drought and all the adverse conditions we've had, so hopefully. 9 bark has some interest in the winter too. Still has some of its leaves, but it's got that really ornamental bark, kind of peely bark on its stems. And this is a new phlox that I just planted too that still has some green sprouts. I'm just going to leave the tops. The dead foliage on the top is sort of an insulator because those were planted late in the season. We've got Seymour sedum. And I cleaned up. You can see where everything was sitting on the porch prior. That's where they all were. Kind of sniffly because it's chilly today. I have big boxes in here because I got a new mattress and frame and all the accoutrements, so I can tear these up and use them in the garden this summer. But this is all I do. They were outside last weekend and they got all that good rain, so they're well watered. They don't need a lot of water in the winter. They're not actively growing. They just need kind of a trickle to keep their roots from completely drying out. So I have these big trays. I think these are from Gardener's Supply Company. I know my mom got them years ago, but they're really sturdy, heavy-duty trays. So if you think about ordering those, they're worth the expense. I also have these fiberglass ones. Normally I have a whole lot more. This place is packed out as much as will fit. Last year I think I overwintered 40 plants, but this year I only have 2 trays because I managed to get most of them planted. So you can even see, I just noticed there's like buds coming out on the sedum. The only thing to be careful of is overwatering. Every year I've lost a few, maybe 4 or 5 plants of those I've overwintered. And my suspicion is that most of the time it was due to water issues, usually too much water. So I just come out here, I have these little things, and just give them the tiniest little trickle of water for each of them. This is a ornamental oregano that has overwintered, but I don't give them much. If there's snow on the ground, I will come out and put a little cup full of snow on top of each, and then it kind of melts gradually. It will freeze thaw and trickle in as it melts. I do have some annuals over here. This might overwinter, this Dusty Miller. It has overwintered for a few years before. These probably won't, but look at this geranium. That's how warm it has been. The Mazu is, it's not completely dead. I just shoved these back here. And then this is all of my stored soil. So these green buckets, 5-gallon buckets back there, all have potting soil from my planters from this last year, along with all of these. I save these soil bags, the big ones, when I use them. because obviously they're great for storing soil. They're nice and heavy duty. So I just fold those up, keep them in the shed. In the fall, I take them out. And as I empty my planters and run out of buckets, I start using these soil bags. Then in the spring, I'll take these out and fill my planters with them again. I usually mix in a good amount of compost, fertilizer, worm castings, and usually I'll put in maybe a little bit of fresh soil. I'll buy a couple of these of fresh soil because I usually need more anyways. And mix that in with the old stuff. So it just gives the soil a refresh. You do not need to throw out your used potting soil every year unless you have maybe insect issues or disease. Of course, I can only speak for cold climate because that's where I garden. But as long as there weren't any issues with insects or disease, peat moss is pretty inert. It inherently doesn't have really any nutrients. Oh, I move this. Scoot that back over. I moved this pillar out here. This is where I store all my pots for the winter. So these I empty out of soil. The big ones I leave the soil inside for the most part. And I'll just mix in more nutrients. Because as I was saying, peat moss inherently, and if you're in North America, unless you go out of your way to find potting soil that does not have peat moss or is not made from peat moss, then your potting soil is primarily peat moss. That's pretty much all that's available, unless you really go out of your way and spend a lot of money to find soil that is not. So the only reason potting soil has nutrients is because it's been added in the first place. Here's some more pots. So it's not necessary to throw it out, and just because the nutrients are depleted, you can just add them back in. That being said, don't save soil that had insect or disease issues because you could be overwintering and replanting your insect and disease issues the next year. Those pots I do throw out. These, because they're smaller pots, and I'm not sure, I think this Vincus hardy, I'm not positive, but these I usually put on the porch. So this is one of those smaller fiberglass trays. These are just in smaller plant cans. They're hardy, but they don't have as much insulation around the roots, so I'll put those, I just stick them on the floor in the porch. Same thing as it's an unheated porch, so it gets down below freezing, below zero when we get that winter. So they do get their cold dormancy period that they need over the winter, but it's not quite as harsh, not fully as cold as it is outside. Let's see, oh, I lost a glove. This is a pile of my dirty gloves. I just take those in and wash them in the machine, along with all the rags that I've dirtied over the fall. Air dry them. I'll take you up front real quick. You can see all the frost. Frost on the grass, on the sedum. Looks really cool. Look at that. Oh, look at those frost crystals. How cool is that? I love it. Very neat. My little shrubs over here. I had to keep the puppy away from these because they are toxic. I also have, these are just annual grasses that I bought on clearance. They were like $1 a piece. I don't know, end of October or something, as garden tents were clearing out. Yeah, she was playing with these and ripping them out. That's fine. I don't know, they're probably dead anyways. They're not hardy here, they're just annuals, but when the flowering annuals were done, I just wanted something in here. Lots of frost up here. These are heucherella. Wow, that looks cool. The grass. Put a bunch of leaves back behind to mulch up everything behind the against the house. These carex are doing really well. That's Ice Ballet carex, those 3. And they are semi-evergreen here, and that hellebore back there, I have a bigger one, and then next to it I just planted one that I got on clearance this fall. I used mulch. This was all new garden bed that I dug out this year. And then I had annuals and things planted, so I just mulched up where they all came out. And I'll use more decorative, the pine bark mulch, kind of around the front half of the garden that you can see, but the back, I'd rather just use leaves. And we got some berries here on the barberry. This is sort of my little heuchera garden. We'll see how that does for next year. The Fothergilla here is putting on buds. Some buds for next year. It's a blue shadow Fothergilla, so it will be a test to see how much sun it actually gets, and if it stays blue in that corner, or if it has enough shade from the house. And the nice thing is these boxwoods are still intact because we have not had any snow. Normally they get buried and crushed under the snow. Although again, I hope we get some snow cover because boxwoods are really prone to winter burn here because we have frigid temperatures and very high winds in the winter. So they just die off because their leaves get dried out by the high wind and burned by the frigid temperature. So it's a good thing that they get crushed under snow. So I guess that's it. I'll leave you with that. Thank you so much for watching. Hope everybody had a good holiday season and has a great New Year. Good, safe New Year celebration as well. And that your weather treats you nicely too. Thank you so much for watching. Have a great day. Please subscribe.